All right. Hi, everybody. Tyler Jeffcoat with Seller Accountant. I have a special guest with me here today, my good friend, Bob Sperling, who we're just going to have kind of a fireside chat here about sourcing. How do you partner properly with your Asian supply chain to bring in product to America in a way that's sustainable and profitable? And Bob, I just want to give you a shout out and intro here. Bob's one of the brands he owns has been a customer. In fact, was one of the very first Seller Accountant customers. And you guys have just absolutely crushed it as a brand owner. But the reason you've crushed it as a brand owner is that you guys have some deep, deep logistics chops. And that's what we're going to talk about today. But for those of my audience that don't know you, give us a little introduction.
Well, I started in the family business way back before I even want to acknowledge when that was. And we were in the importing business back in the 70s and 80s. And we imported all kinds of gift and houseware and home products, selling to most of the major retailers. And we sold that in the early 90s. And then in 1998, I started East West Basics, which I believe is going to be the format that we'll discuss today. And that principally is to develop and source products for major retailers and wholesalers, principally in the home, office, et cetera. And we work with people like Walmart, QVC, FTD, Bed Bath, JCPenney, TJ's, Ross, Macy's, Belk department stores, et cetera, and lots of wholesalers that we've cultivated fabulous relationships with. So we work both collaboratively, where we assist in the development of the products and come up with our own ideas and thoughts, and we'll take direction specifically from the retailers and wholesalers if they prefer that. We have an overseas sourcing infrastructure in place of 35 people full-time. We've been in business 22 years at East West Basics. I have a Taiwanese partner who actually grew up in California, pre-med, UCLA, was going to be a surgeon, ended up going into the family business instead. And he was sent over by his family at 23 years old to move all of their sourcing facilities from Taiwan into China. So brilliantly, he succeeded. And thus, many years later, we leveraged his success and started our own company together, along with one main US partner who is as good in developing and thinking about proper products as anybody I've ever seen. So we have a very seasoned staff that many have been with us 15, 18 years. They have a great feel for product. And so we're able to offer the retailers and wholesalers our thoughts and ideas that we can kind of input off of their lead.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think there are companies all over the place that claim to do things. I think what's unusual, Bob, about our relationship with you and your team, both at Abington Lane and at East West Basics and Jenna Hunter and the other concepts that we work together on, is you guys are actually doing this. I mean, so many of our customers at Seller Accountant, there's lots of different ways to make money online. You might be really great at building the brand. You might be really great at marketing. But you guys, maybe more than anyone I've ever met, have the ability to just develop and produce better quality product cheaper. It's like that golden intersection of those two things where it's very affordable, but part of the reason it's affordable is that the quality is there. And so I'm just curious, for somebody who is just getting into the sourcing game, is like, wow, this is overwhelming. I maybe just bought my last American load. Now I'm going to try to go to China and source some product. What are some of the things that you would want that guy to know as he's getting started here?
Well, for all of those Amazon sellers and Walmart, Wayfair, and whoever, I mean, we're in this game now 3 years new. So we understand the machinations and the difficulties, so we can totally relate to what they're going through. Our main business had always been developing and sourcing products for retailers and wholesalers. So it's kind of like one arm to the other arm. The biggest impediment I can share with those that are out there that aren't really that familiar with sourcing is that you know what you really do well. You have a great feel for products that are in need, how to market it, how to sell it, how to advertise, how to get the reviews. I mean, I've met so many sharp people out there. However, one or two disasters with their products and bad reviews and quality issues, all that hard work and all the brain power, it's done. It's over. So we know this so well. We've had our problems over 22 years. We've had our issues and claims and problems. The main thing I can share is that I think one needs boots on the ground. You need your own people in China. You can't rely on others unless you're working directly with a group like us. And there are others out there that have boots on the ground, that have been doing this for a lot of years, that have integrity and morality in their operation. Taking a chance through Alibaba or third-party people that you don't really know is very, very dangerous. And so it's kind of like you want to know who you're working with, you want to know who you're sourcing through, because you can't do everything and you just need to protect yourself. We have such elaborate procedures and systems in place for quality monitoring, for inspections, for product developing. We have QC departments separate from field merchants, different eyes on the product all along the production run, including the final deliveries. So there are no shortcuts. You have to be on the ground, you have to be in China, you have to know what you're doing, and you have to operate with complete and utter integrity. Otherwise, it's failure all over.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it's one of those businesses that you can't overnight success it. It sounds like it really has taken the years and years of cultivating these deeply entrenched relationships where there's trust, and not just trust, but the other thing that I heard you mention there, Bob, that I've also heard from a lot of the other clients is, unless you have somebody on the ground who's actually putting eyeballs, touching the product, is really involved in not just a haphazard QC process, but a real quality control process, there's just a lot of risk. I mean, I'm just wondering, so just to kind of introduce people to there's some terminology here that I don't even know what all the terms are, but this idea of, what are the steps in a good supply chain management? You mentioned a couple that maybe you can elaborate on a little bit, but there might be some others that aren't even on some guys' radar. Like, for instance, you talk about product development. You kind of talked about that there's a contract negotiation element, there's a QC element. What are some of those kind of links in the chain when it comes to supply chain?
So from start to finish, we're working with a lot of new wholesalers, young entrepreneurial spirits out there that are wise enough to know that they don't know the sourcing, so they want to work with people that they feel are credible. So we will take initial samples. We want their samples because at the end of the day, we're going to sign off on a sample. The customer is going to sign off on a sample. Our office staff overseas and the factory. We're all going to work off the same sample. So there are no games, tricks, misunderstandings, whatever. On top of that, there's a complete list of specifications that our staff follows to a T. We go into the factories with detailed checklists and we don't waver. So it's from the very beginning to the end. It's the sampling, the specs, it's the PO monitoring throughout the process, whether it's directly at the factories, which is for the most part, and even when we're not there, they're video conferences. We want to see the whole process all the way through, not at the end, all the way through. And of course, at the end, we check a large preponderance of the finished production to make sure we're comfortable with it. Field merchants sign off, quality control team, completely separate entity to make sure there's no games going on. We also have an anti-corruption task force, by the way. I mean, because in China, well, China's China. And so we run a very, very clean, organized operation. It's the only way to succeed, fully, in our opinion. So we go through, the entire processes and we work very closely with the customer. We dialogue, we update them, we share with them what's going on. And if there are any concerns during production, and any questions we have, our staff has been trained to always speak up, never assume, never assume. So we constantly are dialoguing with our customers, saying, by the way, this color is slightly off. We want to send you a sample. We think it's okay, but we're not quite sure that you will. So we're going to send you a sample to make sure that you're okay with it. Something like that. Yeah. Or slightly different technique in making the product that might be 5% off. But we don't want any claims. We don't want any thoughts that we weren't following their direction. So transparency is essential. And that's part of what our staff has been trained to how to think and how to do.
Yeah, I think when you're talking about, this is something I've learned so much from you in the last couple of years, Bob, is when you're talking about a business where there are so many cultural differences and obviously the just natural language barrier. This isn't normally a good guy versus bad guy. It's a, can I get so clear, never make assumptions, like you just said? Can I be so clear with my team that there's no misunderstanding? And then can I be the guy in the room that they know I'm going to inspect what I expect, right? And so I think if you can cultivate that, even like you guys have that reputation in China of like, hey, we're going to be fair, we're going to take care of you, but guess what? We're not going to let you cut corners, and we're going to be in the room with you to make sure that we were never unclear about the expectations. I could imagine that having that kind of infrastructure and then having it at scale, and not just at scale, but with this deep number of years of experience behind you, probably, I mean, it'd be hard to even quantify this, but it's probably saved your connections and clients millions of dollars in screw ups, right? I mean, that's the impact of this. Am I right?
Well, it saved us, not the clients, because the clients would have come back to us for claims, and we would have had to have anteed up, which we've done in the past. But we've learned from our own mistakes. We will not cut any corners. We've learned that if we can't meet a price with the high expected quality standards that are necessary, we'll pass.
Yeah.
We've learned by mistake once or twice taking orders because we couldn't make the margin. We thought the quality would be fine. In fact, it wasn't.
Right.
So yes, and you pointed out astutely, factories in China and everywhere, but specifically China, they will look at times to cut corners because of price, because of material costs going up. So, we're very keen to make sure that we look at all aspects of production to make sure no corners have been cut. The other thing you pointed out is the language. Many of our staff speak like we do. So we have a lot of very sophisticated English speaking members of our company, which makes it facilitates things quite a bit. Not everybody, but well enough.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine that's huge because again, you need to have that. You need to be able to translate not just the words themselves, but the concept. Like here's the spirit of what I want to have accomplished here, and that's just great, man. Well, it's funny, just again as a testimony to you. I think what I've learned from you over the last, gosh, it's been 3 years now, Bob, is that you never assume. Like you just, by the way, if your company is the character of you and your business partners that you and I work with together, it's just that ethos, that ethic of saying, I'm never going to be unclear about something. If something is unclear in my mind, I'm gonna have the kind of self-confidence, so to speak, to kind of say, wait a minute, I'm not sure that I understand what you're talking about. And what I don't want to have here is a misunderstanding that may cost us both money and make us both frustrated. Let's clarify this now. And I think that's actually just a good like life lesson there. Like, I'm just kind of curious, what is it about your past or your development that you feel like has really made you, because I feel like that's a great leadership trait, to be honest with you, that I've wanted to learn from. Like, what do you think it's been about? Maybe it's just School of Hard Knocks, but what do you think that's helped you really cultivate that attitude?
Exactly that.
Yeah.
Mistakes, assumptions that were wrong, time and time and time again. So yes, that's one of the things that I inculcate into the rest of our staff members. Never assume, because you don't know. So get it on the table. There are no stupid questions. Always clarify, always ask. Yeah, the hard knocks, mistakes. And that's how we learn the best, right?
Let's say, I'm assuming a few of those mistakes were probably pretty expensive ones, right?
They were. We've had our share. We've had to air freight 3 or 4 containers at a time. When we had a problem with one of the products, it cost us $200,000, and it was a lesson learned. But we, fortunately, we have the resources that we can afford, and we pay for our mistakes. And we are, as I pointed out, it's all about integrity and credibility. We have nothing if we don't have that. So fortunately, for many years, we haven't had any kind of a significant claim. We have small claims here and there, but we run a pretty efficient ship. So and our staff is really, really well trained, and they care. They really care. It's almost like a family of sorts.
Yeah, makes total sense. Well, I think just to kind of maybe pivot and get a little bit practical here. So there's so many sellers that we interact with at Seller Accountant, and And again, as the CFO, I feel like I should be more knowledgeable. I'm thankful for you, Bob, honestly, because this is an area of the even CFO role that I don't have the deep expertise that you have. Help me understand, like, what's John going through? What's the guy going through in his business where he probably ought to reach out and at least talk to your team about, is there a better way for us to consider sourcing our products?
If they're happy with their current sourcing and they're getting reliable information and great pricing and exceptional quality, then there's no need. However, if they're not getting some of those and they're concerned and their instinct is of concern, and or they're just not happy with the quality or price or communication or depth of operation that they see is missing, then it's time to think about searching other opportunities to see if there might be better ones. Because as I said, you can't do, all of you, can't do, including me, can't do everything great. So focus on what you do really well. If it's coming out with the products that you know will do well on whatever platform it is, and you know how best to get it out there, great, focus on that. And if it's not sourcing and you think that you would feel a lot better working with a group that has their feet on the ground and has a full trained staff and a US presence and kind of does soup to nuts, works collaboratively together, then it's time to make a phone call and see a little bit more about what they're about and maybe give them a chance on a product or two just to see. Maybe you don't switch everything at one time. Go slowly. And once they prove themselves, then, step by step.
Makes sense. I could even see as you scale, even if you're kind of sort of happy with your current system, just building additional security into your supply chain by understanding. And I think the alternative to this, Bob, is that a scaling, maybe you're not at 10,000 a month in revenue, but once you reach a certain scale and volume, if you don't want to do the things that Bob's talked about, where you're building a team, that you're going to be there, you're going to have to manage it. And that may be you. You may have someone in your partner group that wants to move to Hong Kong or to China and you kind of manage this. If that's the case, that's probably your competitive advantage. But if it isn't, and this is something you mentioned early on, Bob, if it isn't your competitive advantage, there may be partners out there that can give you some relief. And I think what's interesting about your firm, again, Bob, is that you guys have the ability to sometimes save money and improve quality. Like a lot of times you kind of feel like there's a clean continuum where if you want a higher quality product, you got to be ready to pay twice as much for it. And I think because of that infrastructure that you talked about, you guys actually have a track record of kind of having your cake and eating it too, right?
Yeah, two things. There's a learning curve. So even if you send your own people over to China without tremendous experience, the learning curve is steep. So if you're prepared to pay for it in different ways, that's great. Secondly, you mentioned when you want to scale your business up and you want to grow, the current sourcing infrastructure may be barely satisfactory now, or maybe even a bit more. But if you really want to grow, you may have concerns that the sourcing group you're working with isn't really primed to grow with you. You might be concerned that they can't scale up. Well, we're already scaled up. I mean, we're working with the Walmarts of the world and large wholesalers. So, and we can scale up further. That's our dream, to work with create new relationships, the entrepreneurs out there, where we could start with them and build with them and work with them and spend time together. I mean, this is what we like to do. It's all about relationships in the end.
I completely agree. And so kind of as we get close to landing this fireside chat here, I just want to say thank you, Bob. I think you've been, almost kind of like a mentor to me. You've had, hopefully Seller Accountants had a good impact on you guys also, but I think you guys have really, it's just been awesome getting to work with you and your family and your partners. And, maybe just in closing, I just want to say, is there anything else that you would want to add or anything you'd want to have people hear?
Yes. You have been fabulous to work with. We so enjoy our relationship with you. You've been a savior for us because we were scratching our head and clawing our eyes out, not being able to figure out any of this new stuff that with returns and all of the issues with costing and problems with Amazon and Wayfair and you rolled up your sleeves and you figured things out, and you've been phenomenal to work with. Just real integrity and fun, and we have tremendous confidence in your abilities and work ethic.
Thank you, Bob. Well, thank you. And likewise on all fronts. And we were kind of laughing before we started the recording a little while ago that, not many of our clients, especially in a pandemic, do you actually get to spend time with in person. And Bob and a couple of his teammates, I actually had dinner a year or two ago, and hopefully we'll do it again here soon. Convinced that you would beat me by at least a stroke a hole in golf, and I wouldn't want any part of the martial arts with you either, man. So just so many levels, I respect you. Hey, listen, for anyone who wanted to contact your sourcing outfit, that just wanted to learn more about it, wanted to have a conversation with you, what would be the best way for them to do that?
How to reach us?
Mm-hmm.
Well, either through you
Mm-hmm.
or Abington Lane. We have a customer support Abington Lane. I have the ancient AOL email that we could always forward, that everybody makes fun of me, but I can't give it up because I just like it too much, always through my AOL account. So it could be Abington Lane, customer support, yourself, or my email, which is sperls88@aol.com.
Perfect, Bob. What I'll do is when we post this, I'll make sure there are those links that are in the kind of notes for the blog and for the YouTube video. And then, yeah, just like Bob said, if you guys can't find him for any reason, shoot me an email. Shoot us an email here and we'll get you right over to where you can connect with them. And brother, I just want to say thank you. Thanks for joining me here this afternoon.
It's my pleasure. It was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.
You bet, Bob.
Okay.